Last night saw 4 great games of the second day of Stage 2's third week, which included some exciting and surprising results, alongside a recently traded player getting a debut for his new side. So without further delay, let's get straight into this review of what occurred before I see how my predictions fared and what I'm predicting for Day 3 matches. This second day began with the New York Excelsior, who were still unbeaten in the regular season, versus the Atlanta Reign, who themselves were dealing with the fallout of rumours surrounding Dako's absence. Yet as the teams walked out onto the stage, Dako was among those starting, and it appeared that the quality of his side prior to his absence, which seemingly was part of the reason for his team's subsequent decline, returned to great form with excellent coordination and team play. Even with New York capturing some percentage through the force of their quality on display, Atlanta just simply looked the more threatening side, with Dogman having a big impact on Zen, picking off Jonak and others at crucial times, whilst a rekindled synergy between Pokpo and Dako on the front line was creating a lot of pressure and forcing the Excelsior into mistakes. Both rounds went to 99%, but it was the Reign who won the final team fight on both occasions, as they took Map 1 to give them the surprising edge in the series. Map 2 on Anubis continued in a similar fashion, with both sides overall quite evenly contested, although it felt like Atlanta had the edge. Despite solid holds on both objectives, the Reign in the end capitalised on an ultimate advantage to finish the map with just under a minute left. The Excelsior, however, again struggled to find any momentum on their own attack, as they simply became stuck running into the Widow and Jankrat duo of Babybay and Erster, who were causing New York plenty of issues, with early picks and a lot of fights. In fact, it was only after a Babybay mistake, with him playing too aggressively, that New York finally captured point A, and from this position, they just managed to complete the map in overtime. This meant they had to attack again, but nothing changed, with Atlanta simply having the better and cleaner defense of the two sides, which allowed them to push to the point aggressively with their own time bank advantage and give themselves a shock 2-0 lead at the half. New York to this point just looked flustered, as if they hadn't properly prepared for this game, and they now found themselves needing to reverse sweep to save their undefeated streak. But King's Row didn't begin to inspire any confidence, as Mano was particularly focused down, as in spite of a few nice plays from the Excelsior, including a Mano shatter, Atlanta blitzed through to finish the map with a minute and a half remaining. In reply, New York also finished the map, but with only a few seconds remaining, which set up a repeat to what happened on Anubis, with Atlanta holding before taking point A themselves, as they confirmed the upset victory with a score at 3-0. Rialto concluded in a very similar manner to Anubis in King's Row, with both sides posting very quick, effective attacks, although this time it was the Excelsior who had the advantage, which they used to full effect as they managed to reach the required distance to win a consolation map, as the shock series ended 3-1 in Atlanta's favour. This result perhaps highlights once more why New York are currently falling behind teams like the Shock and Titans, and like from the Seoul playoff series, shows that this team needs to better learn to play from behind in a series. Whereas on the flip side, Atlanta have seemingly righted the ship after a chaotic couple of weeks, and Dako's return seemed to be pivotal in the team making this shift. But it'll be fundamental to see whether they can use this huge upset victory to launch themselves forward and establish themselves as a top 10 team. Philadelphia Fusion face the Houston Outlaws in the second series of the day, with both sides struggling to find some consistency in the level of their performances lately. That said, it was Houston who again came out strongly out of the gates on Busan. Behind their DPS trio of Linksa, Arhan and Dante caused Philly a lot of issues, particularly Soldier in round 1, which the Outlaws picked up. Then, in both subsequent rounds, the Outlaws found themselves reaching 99%, but they couldn't find a way to close out the map, with the Fusion's 3-3 goats bringing them back into the map, as they came back from deficits twice to win the map with the final team fight as they took the 1-0 lead, and this map suggested that this could be quite a close and competitive series. However, it also suggested one other thing that's becoming an area of concern for Houston, which was their GOATS comp was clearly weaker than that of Philadelphia's. This was highlighted on Anubis as the Fusion completed the map easily enough with 2.5 minutes left, before the Outlaws, even with mistakes from Carpe's grabs, only just managed to scrape through both objectives in overtime, but this allowed the Fusion to utilise their time bank advantage and roll into the break with a 2-0 lead. Indeed, from what we have seen so far, Philadelphia were once again playing a very clean match, with Sado looking good on Winston, as Poco was as consistently good as ever on Diva, with Boombox also having an impact on Zen, and to a degree, the level of the performance continued into Eichenwald, with the fusion only just stopped short of the end. But this was mainly down to Sado's Reinhardt, that was again showed to be a big weakness for the side, as the Outlaws needed no invitation to target him. This didn't matter in the grand scheme of things, as Houston's own 3-3 was abysmal in pushing through the first choke towards the first objective, as the side was fully held, giving Philadelphia the victory as they held the 3-0 lead at this point. Unfortunately, the final map being Gibraltar, a Wote's favourite map, it looked worrying for the Outlaws as Sado popped off on Winston with some very effective primals to combo with a few Poco bombs as Philly completed the map before holding their opposition to the first section despite a decent C9 attempt from Muma, as the Fusion closed out the series 4-0. The victory highlighted that the Fusion are definitely a contender for the playoffs as long as they can stick to Winston goats as much as possible. But for the Outlaws, the harsh reality is that whilst they can find some success running their triple DPS comps, their own level of 3-3 will continue to hold them back, with many maps simply favouring that type of composition. I mean, they may have to try running comps like Sombra Goats more often if they want to find success moving forward. Game 3 of Day 2 saw the LA Valiant, after a very impressive and successful previous week, take on the Washington Justice and their new debuting flex support Sleepy, who found his way straight into the side ahead of Guido. The new signing had a solid first game, having just arrived, and just seemed to make the position far more reliable than when Guido was playing, but the Justice found themselves behind early after Oasis, after their 3-3 narrowly lost in 2 consecutive rounds. First to the triple DPS of the Valiant, with Agilities and KSF making plays, but also their GOATs, which won the crucial final fight, giving them the 1-0 lead. Heading into Anubis, both sides were able to complete the map first time round, but the Valiant managed to do this with almost double the time of their opposition, at 3 minutes, despite Janus making a nice shatter combo with Sansam. Yet the second time round, with Washington now attacking for a second consecutive time, they played a far more coordinated round, and were able to blitz through point A and snowball onto the second point, putting all the pressure back onto the Valiant. And it was this pressure that seemed to affect Fate the greatest, as he allowed the often criticised Janus to get the better of him in the Rhine duel, as the Justice managed to hold on at point B to level up the series that saw us tied at the half. However, even with this series tie and the usual suspect Corey playing well, I still felt that the Valiant were in control of the series, and were a little more structured as a unit, and this was highlighted on King's Row, where LA powered through to completion before holding Washington to just before the end after an important boot from Custer alongside some great pressure from space, so they retook the lead 2-1. This momentum carried itself into the following map, Rialto, and it looked like the spirited Washington effort was falling away, as the LA Valiant finished the map in an incredible time of just over 4 minutes, before full holding the Justice at the first point, with Agility's Brig hitting the final nail into the coffin, as LA came away 3-1 winners to continue their excellent run of recent form after their first win. Although, what I've been seeing from the Justice lately, including the pickup of Sleepy, has me confident in the direction they're heading, after seeing their steady improvement continue. Concluding the day was the contest between the inconsistent Hangzhou Spark and the free-falling Guangzhou Charge, and by its conclusion, the match lived up to the teams partaking in it. The first map, Busan, highlighted what we could expect from this series, with both teams mainly opting into the 3-3 GOATs matchup, except that on the side of the Charge, Eileen was running Doomfist, and surprisingly, this worked extremely well, with the Spark struggling to find an answer to it. Before we knew it, Guangzhou had picked up 2 rounds and led the series 1-0, picking up a map for the first time in about a month. The Doomfist was subsequently benched on Paris, and with it, any quality being shown by the Charge, as Hangzhou came back with a vengeance, first finishing the map in under 4 minutes, following a destructive Diva Bomb from Rhea, before then holding their opponents at the first point, with Guangzhou's 3-3 looking as disjointed and scrappy as it had been in the past couple of weeks, as the series was balanced at 1-1 for the break. Again though, the Charge came out with force on King's Row, ending the Sparks' push to just before the second checkpoint, after a huge shatter in overtime from Rio, before employing Eileen's Doom again to blitz to their objective with ease, and actually take a lead for the first time in ages into map 4. Alas, Gibraltar meant no Doomfist, and thus no victory for the Charge, as they just made it past the first checkpoint before being held at the second, whilst Hangzhou had little difficulty responding effectively, with Godsby having a dominant display on the Zarya that he'd been doing very well on throughout the series. This took us to map 5 on Oasis, and it appeared that the Charge hadn't watched last week's footage, as the Spark ran the same Bastion comp to devastating effect as they had against Boston to take the first round, before finally finding a way to deal with Eileen's Doomfist, as they scrape through the second round to win the map and thus the series 3-2, and continue their positive momentum, albeit from two toughly fought matches. The Charge, meanwhile, at least showed some inspiration in this series, but ultimately still looked quite sloppy and messy like their opponents, as their traditional 3-3 still looked to be struggling to find its feet, now having to employ a Doomfist to gather any success. It shouldn't shock anyone to learn that the only prediction I got wrong was from the New York-Atlanta game, but otherwise I ended the day 3 out of 4 to take this week's total to 7-1. With the Reign picking up the biggest surprise in their upset win over the Excelsior, whilst Houston disappointingly showed a continued lack of competition in the 3-3 matchup. Looking ahead to Saturday's matchups, we're in for what I hope should be a very entertaining day of matches, including some of which will be very important for playoff qualification in a couple of weeks. I have the London Spitfire continuing their great run of form recently, edging out the Boston Uprising 3-2 in a close series before the Shanghai Dragons effectively deal with the Florida Mayhem in a 3-1 win. The next series is huge for both sides' runs to the playoffs, and I see it going to 5 maps also, as the Dallas Fuel face the Seoul Dynasty, and my gut is telling me that Seoul will just nick it in the end, but it wouldn't surprise me to see Dallas pick up the win here, especially if Seoul's coaching staff mess around too much with the side. Finally, the LA Gladiators face the Chengdu Hunters, in what I think will be a fun series, but one settled in the 3-3 matchup, which clearly falls in LA's favour as they pick up a 3-1 victory. And with that, we've reached the end of my Day 2 review and Day 3 predictions, and I'd like to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like and subscribe for this continuing Overwatch League coverage and content.